Before I start the video, I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreons who have been supporting my channel. If you would like to check out my Patreon and receive early access to some very exciting videos coming soon, then please click the link in the description below. Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of the Just a Nerd podcast, and today I am joined by a very special guest. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Adam Martyn. I'm an actor, a content creator, amongst various other things that I have to do in life. But yes, I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me on.
Well, thank you for coming on, Adam. I really appreciate it. It is really nice to talk to people that are involved in the Doctor Who fandom. And because, yes, this is a Doctor Who podcast, I would love to know, when did you first become a fan of the show?
Oh, well, we're going back to it might sound similar to a lot of other people like around our age, but it's the truth. Back in 2005, I before it came back, I'd never heard of Doctor Who. I think the most I'd ever seen, I might have seen like a Dalek here and there, in
Yeah.
various bits of media, or maybe like a police box, but I had no I didn't know what it was. I was like, oh, that's an odd thing. And then it was in early March 2005. I was 9 years old and I was watching something with my parents on TV, when people actually all watch TV together.
Yeah.
And a trailer came on, and there was Christopher Eccleston saying, do you want to come with me? And, as a 9-year-old, it's like, whoa, what's this guy running away from fire and all these like crazy things popping up on screen? And then when it was revealed that it was Doctor Who,
Yeah.
again, to me, I was like, okay, that looks cool. But my dad, who of course had watched the show way back when, was like, oh, they're bringing Doctor Who back. He was like, oh, Adam, you've got to watch this. I think he knew, because I'd always sort of been into like science fiction,
Yeah.
like I was into Star Wars, I was into like a lot of Jerry Anderson stuff, like Thunderbirds, all that sort of thing. So I
Nice.
think I think he knew. He was sort of like, if he likes all that, he'll probably like this. And yeah, when Rose went out, we all watched it, and I was pretty much hooked within the first episode. Like the whole concept of it, this guy who travels in time, battling monsters, and I always hold series one as like a very special series, because I think you always hold your first series of Doctor Who like in quite a special
Yeah.
place, because that's what got you into it. But honestly, those 13 weeks, it's a cliche, but it's true. Like, you would go into school and
Yeah.
everyone was talking about it. Like, oh,
Yeah.
what's going to happen next week? Like, what did you think of this? What did you think of that? And after series one ended, it was a big shock to me. Again, somehow throughout the whole series, the concept of regeneration had not yet reached me. So I
Yeah.
just thought, oh, this is just, Christopher X, that's this guy. That's the Doctor. So when David Tennant appeared, I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
it
Oh, I can
seems
imagine.
unthinkable. I know it seems unthinkable now with like the role he has, but I was like, who's this? Like, where's my Doctor? Where's he gone? And then I think again it was my dad who explained that there had been doctors before and that this was part of the show. And I remember that whole summer, 2005, I was just like learning and consuming as much Doctor Who information. I'm the I say kind of kid, I still am. If I like gravitate to something, I like
Yeah. Of
to learn as much as I can about it. So
course.
I remember do you remember the Monsters and Villains book?
Oh, yeah. I remember them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was like a Bible at the time, because that had like loads of classic Who stuff. And yeah, so 2005 was when I became a fan. And then after that first series, I think I was never going to let go of Doctor Who after that. So
Well, I'm guessing you stayed as a fan, obviously. I think that's
mm,
a safe assumption. So after series one, then, and you mentioned about going into classic Who.
yes.
Where did you start? Because obviously classic Who, there's a large catalog, really.
There is. And like you said, like, when you go on the internet, we just got out of dial-up, thankfully, by then.
Yeah.
But looking at all the lists and thinking, oh my God, like there is so much
Yeah.
here. And like you say, it's like, where do you start at the very beginning chronologically, or can you just pick and choose? And I think what helped at the time, 2005, in terms of like the DVD range, there weren't as many of the classic stories out yet on
Yeah.
DVD. Obviously, they'd all been out on VHS, and we still had a VHS player. But I don't know if any other fans can back me up, but it's in 2005, VHS had sort of really like stopped being like sold in like the mainstream places, like your video shops and HMV places like
Yeah.
that. So I never really got the chance to get Doctor Who VHSs, so it was the
Oh, okay.
DVDs. and the one that grabbed me was the Three Doctors, probably because right on the cover,
Yeah.
Doctors 1, 2, and 3. And I thought, oh, well, classic kid thinking. It's like, if there's three Doctors, that must mean it's three times as good as anything else. And it was a bit of a shock at first, like it was, I hadn't clocked on that the episodes were shorter than the new series, 25 minutes each. I didn't know about like the old style of like acting and the way it was shot, but I think oddly as a 9-year-old, that honestly didn't bother me. I didn't come away from it. And there's some janky effects in the Three
Oh yeah, of
Doctors, as I'm
course.
sure we all know. But yeah, I didn't sort of come away from it thinking, oh wow, like that was, that was bad or whatever. I think still being 9, I think the imagination was still leading it. So I was like fully buying into the fact that, this wasn't a quarry they were filming in. This was like an antimatter world and all this sort of stuff. So I think that really helped. And I just love the premise. I mean, I instantly got hooked on John Pertwee and Patrick Troughton mainly. Like that whole dynamic they've got's great. And I went straight to the Five Doctors after that because I thought, well, if I'm enjoying the Three Doctors, I must like the Five Doctors. And as even you got to remember, I was a kid, bit disappointed Tom Baker wasn't in it as much, but I read up on that and tried to, understood why. But I think it is a shame though, when it's billed as the Five Doctors.
Yeah, of course.
I think as a kid, you're expecting a scene with all 5 of them, and I know you don't quite get it, but I mean, I love that story. And then from there, I didn't really have an order. I hadn't really found online. I hadn't seen anyone say, "Oh, you must go in this order." So then it just became a case of whenever I saw the DVDs out in the shops, and if I had enough pocket money to buy it. Because I remember once one of the earliest ones I got was Mark of the Rani with Colin Baker, which I don't think was a story I had like high on my list as a kid of like, oh, I want to see that, but it was the only Classic Who thing in the shop, and I had £10 of pocket money to spend, so I was like, well,
burning a hole in your pocket as well.
Exactly, yeah. But I think even episodes like that where you maybe don't enjoy them as much, you still, I still have a bond with that story because I think when you watch them when you're a kid, again, you have that imagination, and I think it just creates such a stronger connection with it. So yeah, Classic Who, it took me 10 years to get all the DVDs, and then like 2 years after I'd finished all that, they were like, hey guys, have you heard of this thing called Blu-ray? And I thought, oh, not again. I mean, at first I didn't buy the Blu-rays, like see what was it, series 12 first, then season 19. I didn't buy them because I was stubborn and thought, no, I've bought all the DVDs now. I don't need high definition. Rah, 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 rah. But then I think by the time the third box set came out, which was season 18, if memory serves, by that point, all the talk of like the special features that were on the new ones, and the fact that it was concise on your shelf, and I was converted. And I am glad, like it has saved me a lot of shelf space, I'll give you that. But I'm sure older fans will be cursing me saying, well, I bought all the VHSs and then I bought all the DVDs. But yeah, so I've had chance to see, I think, all of Classic Who that's available at least once, which I'm very grateful for. But yeah, hopefully we'll find more, like, missing episodes and stuff. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about missing episodes at the moment, because I don't know if you've seen, there's been some rumors here and there that, some are being found or might be found. Just out of curiosity, what missing episode would you like to be found, say, tomorrow in a hypothetical world?
Oh, we've all thought this before, haven't we?
Yeah.
Well, if you'd have asked me this a few years ago, I probably would have said the evil of the Daleks.
Yeah.
Because again, when I read that synopsis as a kid, and we had the surviving episode, and then listening to the audio soundtracks, it just sounded like this big epic, like end of the Daleks feature.
Yeah.
I think once they've done the animations, that like the want for them to come back sort of goes down on my list a bit. Not because I don't want them back anymore, but I think if I've got an option to view it via animation, at least I have a visual form of that story, whereas say Marco Polo doesn't yet. So yeah, if tomorrow, I think I would say Marco Polo, just because again the soundtrack's great, and it's like Doctor Who's first big historical epic, and I think if we could have that back, that'd just be, well, it'd be brilliant for starters. And I mean, you'd have a near complete series 1. I think the only missing ones then would be Reign of Terror, 2 episodes there, but they've animated those, so it'd just feel more complete. So I think Marco Polo would be and I think that's one, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but is that the one that has a fairly strongish chance because that was sold to like more countries than
I did read that there was one of them that was, so you might be right there, Adam. I think that might be Marco Polo.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you've obviously been a fan of the classic era as well as the modern revival.
Yeah.
And I am curious to know, and you've consumed a lot of Doctor Who. If you
Too
had
much,
to
probably.
pick, well, there's never a thing as too much, you know?
Not for us, not for
Yeah,
us, but
yeah, not for
for
us.
loved ones, various family members, they might think, disagree. But
But if you were to pick one episode from the classic and
Hmm.
modern eras that is a standout favorite to you, what would they be and why? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, no, no. I think with classic Who, there's always two that instantly spring to mind, and I think they're different
Yeah,
for different contexts. I'd say my favorite classic Who story to watch with a new fan who's getting
yeah.
into classic Who for the first time is the Tomb of the Cybermen,
Yes.
because I think it's just a great 4-part story. It's like nice and concise. There's not like too much backstory, like so early in the show's run. You know, you don't have to watch much else. There's great performances from the leads. The side cast are pretty memorable. The Cybermen themselves, I think they're pretty scary actually in Tomb
Yeah.
of the Cybermen. And I've watched that with a few people now who had never seen any classic Who before. And you know, they all start, oh, it's in black and white. People say people don't say that. They do. They
Yeah,
really
they
do. They
do.
go, oh, it's in black and white, da 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 da. But by the end of it, they've gone, oh yeah, do you know what? I actually really enjoyed that. And it's always that cliffhanger. I think it's in part 2, you know, when they unfreeze the Cybermen
Yeah.
and the cyber controller delivers that you belong to us, you shall be like us. It always seems to be that moment where people I'm watching with will go, oh my god, we've got to watch episode 3, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, like we've done it. So with new fans, I'd say Tomb of the Cybermen's my favorite. For
Yeah.
myself, probably Remembrance of the Daleks
Oh, I
from
love that
McCoy's
one.
time. It's just
Yeah.
again, it's great in it. Nice, like concise 4-parter. It rewards you, I guess, for knowing a bit more about Doctor Who in its history, with like
Yeah.
the Hand of Omega stuff, the Daleks past, etc. But again, it's one I think I was about 11 when I saw that, and I loved everything about it. The two Dalek factions, the fact that Davros was in it, McCoy showing that like darker, more manipulative side, which I think he does so well,
Yeah,
and I
he
still don't
does.
think he gets enough credit for. Yeah, I just love it, and the soundtrack as well. Kev McCulloch, the soundtrack of Remembrance is brilliant, and yeah, that's one that I have tried showing that to newer fans, but I think again they don't mind it, but I think there's just a bit too much like history and lore that like
Yeah.
needs explaining, and I think Tomb's better for that. So yeah, for new fans it's Tomb of the Cybermen. For me it's Remembrance, and then New Who.
Oh.
I know, New Who. Well, like I said, I could easily pick, say, the series 1 finale, Parting of the Ways, just because it was honestly one of those moments. Like I remember exactly where I was in 2005, the hype around it. So that's always going to be high up there for me. But one of them that I think I, probably might eclipse it now as I've gotten older is
Ooh.
Deep Breath.
Deep breath. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I always say with Doctor Who, Matt Smith's era, like I did watch it, like you said, I never missed an episode. I always
Yeah.
tuned in every week. But I know I say this all the time, but like when Matt Smith's era was going on, I was between like 14 and 17.
Yeah.
And as anyone knows, like when you're a teen, like there's so much going on, you're
Of
changing a lot
course.
as a person. Doctor Who in school, honestly, I know it wasn't the same in every school, but in my school at that age, it wasn't seen as like the cool thing anymore. That's
Yeah.
just how it
No.
was.
Yeah, I know about
I still watched it, but like I couldn't feel as open as a fan then.
that. Yeah.
And a lot of the stories in the era didn't connect with me. That's not me saying I think they're bad. I
Yeah.
think it's just, I watched them and thought, oh, I didn't really get the same buzz as I did with, say, Chris or David Tennant. But then when Capaldi came along, I just went to uni. And again, huge shift in life. And I think the shift to that darker, more abrasive version of the Doctor was really what I personally needed or wanted at the time. I wanted something that was a bit more sharp around the edges. I wanted something that wasn't afraid to paint the Doctor in a more, not a more negative way,
Yeah.
but a way that you may not associate with the Doctor. And I think Peter, honestly, is the best actor we've ever had take that part, in my personal opinion, because in those 80 minutes, well, for me at least, I instantly believe him. Like he just, some Doctors people say, oh, it took me like 2, 3 episodes before I was like, yeah, that's the Doctor. Honestly, for me, it was like within the first 5 minutes, because you get those light and shade. He's still the hero, he
Yeah.
still rescues them all at the end. He still solves the problem. But why can't the Doctor, after all these years, have a more abrasive side,
Yeah.
or I just think it re-added to that mystery of Doctor Who, pretty much. So yeah, deep breath, I think, probably these days.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point as well that you brought up about the Doctor's characterization in Series 8 as well, because, you know, at the end of Matt Smith's era, he stayed, I think, wasn't it like 1,000 years in Trenzalore for that
That's
whole
right.
siege bit? And like,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, you know, the Doctor who actively tries to avoid war and
Mm.
conflict gets involved in it and then regenerates because of it. With a
Yeah.
new cycle, there's less guilt because of the time war and that's been resolved. Like, yeah, the Doctor is going to go down a different path, and I think that's a really important aspect of the Doctor's character because they've gone through a lot of turmoil.
Absolutely. And like the whole thing of, people saying, oh, he's too quick to like have a go at the human race. And I'm like, well, if you'd been saving the race for 2,000 years and they
Yeah.
keep making the same mistake, it's like, I'd probably be a little bit ticked off as well. And it's, a lot of people dog on controversial episode, Kill the Moon. I
Yes.
know it starts discourse, so put your torches down, everybody. But I always loved that bit in it where the Doctor leaves
Yeah.
because in my mind it's like, but for two reasons. Like on the surface it's a shock, obviously,
Yeah.
you've got the conundrum, and naturally in most episodes you go like, Doctor, what do we do, what's the solution? And for him just to go, it's not my decision. Like, in fact, I think that's so, why can't the Doctor do things like that? Why can't he just shrug his shoulders and go, yeah, you know what, your planet, you do it, you sort it. But then I think that works beautifully at the end when Clara goes off at him,
Yeah.
because then she's got a leg to stand on. I can't remember the exact phrasing, but she's like, it was cruel of him to do that. And I think it really plays into that whole "Am I a good man?" saga that goes on that series. But I just loved all those what people think are more like controversial points in Kill the Moon, because it shows the Doctor doing things that the Doctor doesn't normally do. But I don't think that's a bad thing with this
Yeah.
character. Like, why can't we show him or her in more situations where it surprises us? As long as it's justified, if it's just
Yeah.
done for like the sake of it. But I honestly argue that in that script it is justified.
Yeah.
So
No, again, that's a very good point to make as well, especially with such a controversial episode.
mm,
Because like even the ending, where Clara goes off at him and stuff like that,
yeah.
threatening to slap him so hard he'd regenerate.
I don't
Always
like that line, I must admit. I was a bit
oh
like,
really?
yeah, I was a bit, that's a bit cringe. Like, that's
I
just
mean, I can get that. I mean, it did certainly catch me off guard when I watched it. I was like, oh, okay,
I
Clara,
think
oh,
I think I didn't find it as bad because she's playing, obviously she's very angry.
yeah,
And I think if it was played as like a joke, I would have been like, oh, like, come on. But yeah, not a fan of the line, but I think, like you say, because she's doing it out of anger, it's
yeah,
less, I find it less thingy. But like when people just say it like, I'm like, oh god, yeah, that's a line. But at least it's not something about browser history, right? So
oh yeah, yeah. The browser history gags are
yeah,
always the
it worked the
highlight.
first time,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I was about to say when it first happened in Series 5 during the Eleventh Hour. Okay,
yeah,
fair
yeah.
enough. And then when it got to, I always forget the episode name in Series 10, the one with the emoji bots.
Oh, the smile, is it?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was like, okay, Moffat, okay,
Yeah,
we get it now.
we understand. Yeah.
But let's move on to the next segment, Adam. And I don't know if you knew, but this year is the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who.
No way.
I know, right?
60 years, man. Yeah.
Crazy. And
Yeah.
in a couple months' time, we're getting three specials,
Mm,
which are very exciting. We've just had a brand new trailer.
we have.
But I want to know, what are your hopes for the future of the show?
Ooh, hopes for the future. Well, I'm very happy with the creative team behind it. I think
Yeah,
most of us, when Russell T was coming back, I think we are all like, oh, great. Like
yeah,
that's a hand who's done it before, a hand that we know has had great success with it. I still do see, I think some people still think it is going to be 2005 to 8 all over again, which
yeah.
I'm kind of like, it's not that time anymore. And
Hmm.
obviously we know Russell's very progressive, and
Yeah,
he'll want to include things that represent our society today,
yeah,
which is going to irk certain people.
yeah,
But I don't mind that. So I'm really happy with the creative team. I think Ncuti Gatwa was a great choice of
yes,
Doctor. Really loved his work in Sex Education, and
yeah.
honestly, like I saw the Barbie movie earlier this year, and seeing his name pop up, and you almost want to like punch the air, going like, "What? Like that's Doctor Who." Yeah, I think he's a really great actor. I think already he's a really great ambassador for
Yeah,
the show. like all the little clips they've done of him or interviews, he seems genuinely like thrilled and humbled to be taking on that role, which I
Yeah,
think is great. And I can't wait to see what he does with it. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. I think my hopes for the future, um, I'm all for change. Like, you know, Doctor Who is all about change.
yeah,
And I think with Russell at the helm, they'll still keep one or two elements that any fan will be able to go, you know, that's Doctor Who. That's what
yeah,
I remember about Doctor Who. But no, hopefully, I just want them to be fun. I
yeah,
just want them to have a great time. I want them to maybe explore more depths of the character again, like I talked about with Capaldi.
yeah,
Maybe just because Shooty's a really positive person, you know, doesn't
yeah,
mean his doctor can't have maybe a bit more like light and shade to him. Like,
yeah,
I think we say it with all new doctors, but like I think we all want to see him at one time get angry
yeah.
because
Oh yeah,
each different doctor handles that in such a different way. And I'd be really curious to see how Shooty handles like a more uh like a darker situation or a darker storyline. So I hope Russell, I'm sure he will, because he did that a lot in his first tenure. I think he said in one interview, like, you have to have those moments to like help build the drama of it all.
yeah,
So yeah, I can't wait to, and the pairing, Shooty and Millie, I think that'll be
yeah.
a
That's a really good
great
pairing.
pairing. Yeah.
Yeah, like even with the little interviews they've done together already, you can kind of tell that there's a fair bit of chemistry there already, and you never know, we could end up with the next Tennant and Tate on our hands, which I think would be really cool.
I think it's certainly possible. Absolutely.
So, with the recent trailer as well,
Mm.
Adam, I'd like to know what were your thoughts on it, and were you punching the air when you watched it initially?
Yes, a few times as such. I mean, I'm a big fan of Kate Stewart and Unit, so
Yeah,
and I think we knew they were coming back. Excuse me, in some form anyway.
yeah.
I couldn't remember if I know they'd announced she was coming back, but I wasn't sure if it had been for Shooty's first series or the specials. I can't quite
I think it
remember.
was series 14 first, and then the trailer was
Okay.
like, okay, yeah, she's in this as well.
She is, yeah. No, I really like Kate Stewart as a character
Yeah,
and the whole Unit thing. And it's so lovely that Unit is part of yet another big anniversary, like with the 10th, 20th, and 50th. I think that's just a great little tradition. Even if she's just in it for one of the three, like
yeah,
I'd be happy. Glad we finally got confirmation that Neil Patrick Harris is the toy maker. And
finally.
worst kept secret, really, in it. Because I
Yeah,
think right from the first teaser, all of us were like, "Oh, that's the toy maker, isn't it?"
yeah,
But yeah, nice that we've got that confirmed. I really hope, and we got glimpses of it. Like everyone loves that shot, you know, where he's like the puppet master.
yeah.
I really hope we get to see how powerful the toy maker
Hmm.
is. Because in that initial Hartnell story, like, yeah, they explain he's powerful. He can make the Doctor invisible, make him disappear. I think they established that he's immortal as well.
Yeah,
But I think now on like a 2023 scale, we can really delve into just how much he can manipulate events. Like I know one theory running around is maybe the toy maker manipulated Jodie's regeneration. That's why the 14th Doctor looks like David Tennant, and it's
yeah.
really the toy maker organize like bringing Donna back in. I think that'd be really cool. Obviously, that might
Really
not
would.
happen, but I think
Yeah,
that's a really cool theory. Obviously Donna coming back, great. Wondering how they're gonna skirt around the whole, you know,
memory thing. Yeah,
because they pretty much revealed that in the trailer, didn't they? Like she references the TARDIS and she's with the Doctor, so they seemingly sort it somehow.
yeah.
I think it might be to do with Ruth Madeley's character because that's who
Yes.
the Doctor's like talking to about it, and she seems to be in the. I think she's in the background shot on the helipad
Yeah,
at
she
one
is.
point.
Yeah.
So I really want to see how she plays into it. But yeah, no, I'm just excited for it all, man. Like the fact that Russell T Davies had the audacity to look at the Star Beast, you know, a comic from
Oh no.
1980, and go, yeah, you know what, I'm going to adapt it. Like fair play, man.
Yeah.
Fair play to him. Like beat the Meep and all this. I think it's going to be
Oh, I'm
brilliant.
really looking for. And also, we've got Miriam Margolyes as well, voicing Beat the Meat. That is incredible. Like, I'm really looking forward to that.
It does make me chuckle when everyone's like, "Oh, she's gonna go off like she normally does." I'm like, I don't think she's gonna swear somehow. Like I
Yeah,
don't
I
think you'll
mean,
see. I don't think you'll see Beat the Meat dropping the F bomb anytime soon. But
yeah, I was about to say, I think, especially primetime TV, probably not.
probably not. Yeah.
But it's interesting that you mentioned about Celestial Toymaker and that whole puppet scene in the trailer. And when I first watched that, my mind went back to Spider-Man Far From Home. I don't know if you've seen.
With the like Mysterio
Yeah,
thingy sequence. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
because like where he like mentally like tortured Peter Parker and even
yeah.
showed him Tony Stark's grave. And I'd kind of like to see something similar with that with the 14th Doctor, because you do see it later on in the trailer where he's, screaming and he's very angry.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
don't know,
yeah.
maybe that could be a way to throw in an odd cameo from an old companion, like, Rose
That'd be
Tyler.
great. I mean, like aren't people is it the middle episode, While Blue Yonder? People are
Yeah,
speculating it might be a sort of episode like that because we haven't had much teased about that, which I
yeah,
think would be really cool. Like episodes like that, or like Heaven Sent or stuff like that, where it's really low, or Midnight, where it's really low key, like one main set or something, a
yeah,
small group of characters. I think it's great. Not all the time, obviously, but I think
yeah,
it's great when Doctor Who does that from time to time because I think 9 times out of 10 when they've done it, like I've really loved it. Like
yeah.
again, Midnight's a prime example. Heaven's honestly, when I first watched Heaven Sent, I was like, this guy's the best actor of all time. Like he just smashed it. I
Yeah,
mean, I was honestly, I don't know about you, but I was gripped from like the minute the word go right
yeah,
until the very end. And like I love that duology. I know everyone hates Hellbent and all this, but I'm a big Hellbent defender.
yeah.
I do recognize that there are points in it that are a bit this and that,
No,
and
of
people don't
course.
like, which is fair. But I like Hellbent a lot, and it's mainly again because of the acting. And I think as an actor myself, it's hard really now because when you're a kid, you're not watching to look at is the acting bad or is the
Mm,
special effects bad or does the story make sense? You're just watching it for the fun, the
yeah,
entertainment. And I think, like we do, as fans, you want to like look at stuff, and I think subconsciously we analyze and we're like, oh well, that's not like this, that, and the other. And what I loved about Jodie's era was, and I think it was just where I was at the time of life. Like I'd graduated from uni, I'd started renting a house with my partner at the time, so another big life change. And
yeah,
when Jodie's episodes were on, I just thought, I just want to watch these and have fun. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? And, I didn't necessarily click with all of them, but a lot of them I'd come away thinking, I've just had an hour of good fun there. Like I was really entertained.
yeah,
So I try and do that now as much as possible. I try and watch it first. Like I still do reviews on YouTube and stuff, but
yeah,
if I watch it on transmission, I want that to be like non-critical,
yeah.
just sit back, just enjoy it. And then if I want to do a review, I'll watch it again with a more like eager eye. But yeah, no, that's what I really try and like to do with all my programs now, really. Like I
Hmm.
don't mind analyzing, but I think if I did it all the time, I don't think I'd enjoy anything.
Yeah, it'd probably drive you insane as well,
Probably,
because
yeah.
it's like you mentioned as well, episodes that you don't necessarily click with, and like from my point of view, yeah, the last era I didn't necessarily connect with overall, but I do appreciate it for what it was, and it did
Yeah,
also bring fans to the show. New fans means
it did.
new creativity, and I think that's really important with a show like Doctor Who, because it's been going for 60 years, and it's always nice to see new faces at conventions or on YouTube, creating
Absolutely.
content.
And I like to think that's something. I know Russell said that before. He always champions like new blood, as it were, coming into the
Yeah,
business. And I know, obviously he's done it before. But I'd like to think the writers for series 14 and 15, I don't think they've been revealed as of yet, have they?
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, and obviously we know Russell will probably write some episodes himself,
Yeah,
but I'd like to think a lot of the other writers will be people new to the industry or have
yeah,
only done one or two things. Because I agree with you, that's one thing I praise Chibnall for, absolutely, that
yeah,
he, especially in those first two series that he did, I think nearly every other name was someone who'd never written for
yeah,
Doctor Who before. And I think, and like you say, some people click with it, some people don't, but I think even just doing it is so important to give new people the chance to flex their imagination as
yeah.
well. And I'd like to think that's something Russell will champion as it goes forward.
Yeah, exactly. And because you can't always rely on the old names, because
No,
that doesn't work. And eventually, people will probably get tired of seeing their names being brought forward every time. And Doctor Who is a show, as we mentioned before, that survives on change.
absolutely. And don't get me wrong, if one episode, it'll likely never happen, but if one episode's like, a Stephen Moffat or a Mark
Yeah,
Gatiss, like, sure, great. Like, why?
yeah,
I'm all for them. I'm not saying like old writers can never do it again, but if you don't want that to be the whole slate.
yeah, yeah. Of
So.
course, of course. But I am curious to know though, Adam, because obviously, yeah, you've been a fan of the show, and you've also made, Doctor Who content on YouTube, amongst
Yeah.
various other things.
Mm.
What inspired you to start making YouTube content?
Oh, boredom, I think. No, well, I started in Well, actually, today, when we're recording this, which is the 27th of September, my channel turns 11 years old today. I've just
Oh wow!
realized.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. That just popped in my mind all of a sudden. So yeah, 27th of September 2012, I started, and my first video was literally me with my Samsung Galaxy S2. We're going back here now. That had an
Blimey.
I know that had an 8 megapixel camera, which at the time was seen as like that was peak camera. With the flashlight on because I'm a moron. Uh, Filming my Doctor Who DVD shelf, going, "Hi guys, this is my first video." All the typical first video stuff. Like you've got no idea. There's no edits, no cuts, no music, no nothing. It's awful. But I leave it there because it's like, well, I'm not embarrassed about it. Like it's just we all started somewhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny to look back on. Like if someone brings it up, I'm like, yeah, they're funny because it is so bad. Like it's terrible. So I think I just, I'd seen other collection videos on YouTube and thought, oh well, I'll do that. And then that expanded into like I think other movies I had, not just Doctor Who, and then like my vinyl record collection. And then at uni began the saga of I call it the I'm Back saga because I think at uni, I thought, right, alongside my degree, I'll do YouTube
Yeah.
videos on various things. My uni degree took a lot of time, was very
Yeah.
intensive. And I think about 3 times over the 3 years, I'd make like one video saying, right, guys, I'm back, I'm gonna do content. And then I'd do one video after that. And then you'd wait 9 months, and then there'd be another video going, guys, I'm back. And then that just kept happening. The real turning point, I think, was the summer of 2016. So that was
Yeah.
before my final year of uni. And again, I don't know why, but I thought I want to make a little video about the history of the 5 main terrestrial TV channels
Yeah.
we have here in the UK. Just popped in my head. I just got a new laptop, a MacBook Pro. It was the first time I was using editing software, which sounds so awful to say now, but it's true. So I was like, I made this little 9 minute video and, put it on, didn't think anything of it. And it just blew up. It got thousands of views and people were asking for more videos like it. So I did it on I'm trying to think now. I did it on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I did it on Brum, which was one of my favorite kids' TV shows back in the day. I did it on Thunderbirds.
Nice.
I did it on Casualty, which is now a lost episode because it got removed
Oh.
worldwide and I don't have the original files. So that's
Oh.
floating about in the ether somewhere. Yeah, and then when I graduated, it was just something I did on the side. I never made it a job.
Yeah.
And even now, producing content more actively, I still I don't consider it a job
Yeah.
because I know for me, some people do, and that's great. Like if that helps you, saying it's your full-time job and it helps you make content or whatever, like more power to you. But I know for me, the minute I say, right, this is my job now, I know that's just going to get me in a rut eventually. That
Yeah.
pressure of I've got to make videos when it's like, well, I don't really. It's it's a hobby. It's on my own time, and I think that philosophy is why I'm still making stuff now because it's very much a casual thing that I like to do.
No, of course. And again, like when it comes to content creation, and you mentioned at the beginning, filming on the Samsung Galaxy S2. I think I used to have one of them as well. And to be fair, I think I used to do like random vlogs
Oh yeah, I remember the
with them.
vlog scene. I never did those for some reason, but yeah, I remember they were big, weren't they, years ago?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they were, and yeah, I remember back then, like Nerd Den certainly is my first YouTube channel, and I tried to record gameplay from that phone
Oh wow.
of me playing on my Xbox. So yeah, you can imagine the quality was, yeah, it was
We all
beautiful.
started somewhere, man. We all started somewhere.
But yeah, obviously, trial and error. But then when you start getting into it and you kind of find your footing a little bit, is very important. And
Mm.
I've got to ask, do you have any advice to any upcoming content creators out there?
Oh, my advice would genuinely be when you're starting out, make what you want to make.
Yeah,
Um, I know it's hard, like if you're watching, like, say, trending stuff, you're seeing
yeah,
stuff popping off. I'd say only do that if your heart's in it. And I know that sounds really corny to say, but it's true. Like I've seen people do it where you can tell they've shifted their content to like whatever's trending, whatever like dramas blowing up or anything like that. And you can just tell from the delivery, their heart's not in it. Like they
yeah,
don't really care about this topic or whatever. They're just doing it to get easy views. And I
yeah,
think, you will get those views and that's fine. But if your audience then finds out you are doing it for that reason and no other, I
Yeah,
don't think they'll stick around.
of
Whereas
course.
I'd like to think, I mean, with my channel at the minute, I've got nearly 35,000 subscribers, which is insane. Like, never thought I'd have anywhere near that much.
Yeah,
But, compared to the big boys of YouTube, that's still relatively small. But I'd like to think people stick around because
yeah,
the stuff I talk about is stuff I genuinely am passionate about
yeah,
and have an opinion about or want to talk about or like make a certain documentary. I try to stay away from stuff that I'm not really bothered about. Even things to do with like TV history or even Doctor Who in some examples.
yeah,
Like when it was announced that Catherine and David were coming back, I could have easily made a video and now, talking about that. And for whatever reason, I just didn't feel that pull in my gut. I was like, well, what really am I going to say? Like,
yeah.
it's they're coming back. This could happen. This could happen. I'm not saying that's a bad idea for a video. Don't decry anyone who did it, but I try and go with my gut a lot. If I don't
Yeah,
feel that instant pull when I read about something like, I want to talk about that,
yeah,
then I won't do it because I think anything other than that will just come across as really hollow. So yeah,
yeah.
just be true to yourself. Make what you want to make. Don't
Mhm.
try and fall into trends if you don't believe in it. Don't
Yeah.
make content that you're not passionate about.
And that's the thing as well. You can tell with you can tell with videos and stuff like that when people are passionate because you can hear it in their voice. You can kind of read the body language. Whereas if you're kind of sounding as I guess as monotone as a Dalek,
Yes, yeah,
you're probably not going to draw people in. And I think passion is pretty much the key to success, not just in YouTube, but with any job or anything, to be honest.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it is. Everyone says, "Oh, that's so cliche or corny," but I think it is true. If your
Yeah,
heart's in it, you will reap the rewards from it. And with YouTube, again, the other advice I give would be don't bank on it because it's so unreliable. Like I'll
yeah,
I'll have months where videos will just pop off really well, they'll
yeah,
do great, and then the next month they won't do as great, and it slumps.
yeah,
And I think you can't get too obsessed with the numbers of you. And
yeah.
again, I know it's easy, and
Oh
God,
yeah.
YouTube doesn't make it easy because on the studio, it's like, oh, you've got like your videos 10 out of 10, or
Yeah.
you've earned less this week than last week.
Hmm.
They don't make it easy, but I think the more you can stay out of that rabbit hole of
Yeah.
just sitting scrolling through analytics, I think you'll have a more fun time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something I've learned as well, especially just being a Doctor Who channel, because obviously when Doctor Who's not on air and not getting news, yeah, people aren't going to be watching the videos as much because in terms of general audience, people aren't going to be remembering it as much.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Yes.
that's kind of why I wanted to change it up a little bit. And that's why I created this podcast, because I love hearing about other people's, opinions and all of that stuff. And I think, yeah, that's probably something else. Try and mix it up. Like as you said, do something you're passionate about.
Absolutely. I mean, case in point, I did a video on my channel recently reviewing a 4K box set of the Wicker Man horror film from
Okay.
the 70s. I wouldn't have normally done that. A
Yeah.
guy from Studio Canal reached out to me and said, would I like to receive a copy to review? And people think, oh, that's a no-brainer. Like, a free 4K box set, absolutely. But I had to think about it because I thought I don't do like movie unboxings on my channel. I don't
Yeah.
really talk about movies on my channel. But then I thought, this is what I mean. I said to myself, Adam, like, you're thinking about the numbers here, just accept it. And I did it. And I actually had so much fun making that video,
Yeah.
like, because I love films. And so
Yeah.
talking about this horror film that I'd never seen before, but heard about was fantastic. And unboxing this set. And yeah, it didn't do well compared to other stuff, but I was just happy to have made it. And I've had some really lovely comments on that video just saying, wasn't expecting this from you at all, but really enjoyed it. Will you do others in the future? So I think, like you say, experimenting with stuff, even if
Yeah.
you know it's not going to do well,
Yeah.
just do it, just for yourself, because I guarantee 9 times out of 10, again, if you're passionate about it, you'll have fun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And passion, I guess, without sounding corny or whatever, is the key to success. But I am
Mm.
curious because yeah, you have had a lot of success with your YouTube channel. You've built up a sizable audience and you are passionate about what you do. So I'm curious to know, Adam, what have been some of the highlights from your YouTube
Oh,
career?
some of the highlights.
Yeah.
I think reaching 10,000 subs was a big one for me because I think that happened I think it was during the first wave of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So obviously a lot of people were home more people watching YouTube. And by that point, I'd been on YouTube for 8 years,
Yeah.
and that just seemed like, again, in the grand scheme of YouTube, it's such a relatively small number, but for me that was like, damn, like I've hit 10,000 subscribers, and honestly every new milestone I just keep it's like, what on earth, like I can't
Yeah.
believe it. That was one. Probably one of my the first, I think it was the first of them, the first of my documentaries to reach 100,000 views, which was the ITV strike of 1979. Because again, that was
Yeah.
just a topic I found fascinating, I wanted to talk about, and people seem to really, I mean, honestly, all the documentaries are highlights for me, because for me that's like a culmination of like what I've learned being on this platform, and learning how to take a topic you're interested in
Yeah.
and formatting it into an accessible video. And some do way better than others, but even the ones that don't do as well, I'm still super proud of,
Yeah.
because it's stuff I'm really passionate about. I mean, this year during the summer, I made a few documentaries about how different countries adapted color TV. So,
Yeah.
like West and East Germany at the time, Sweden, Norway, Israel. And for me, that's a rabbit hole. I'm like fascinated by all this, and it's been great to see that many thousands have also been fascinated by it. So, yeah, I think mainly hitting 10,000 subs and my documentaries are what I'm probably the most proud of.
No, and that's lovely to hear. And even when you're talking about it, I can again tell, the passion in your voice, because you've enjoyed, reaching your milestone that you've set, and obviously making the content as well, which is very important. And
Mm.
we have already touched upon this a fair bit already, but just to go over things, you've
Yeah.
obviously got a lot of hobbies and interests outside
Oh,
of Doctor
yes.
Who. So yeah, just go over them again. Just tell us, how do you get up
Yeah.
to outside the world of Who?
Yeah, can't sit still for long, me. Well, first and foremost, I say I'm an actor. That's
Yeah.
what I trained in. That's what I like to do. But as many actors will tell you, that's not always our choice.
Yeah.
No, I'm always applying for stuff. I'm actually going to be. I recently found out this week. I'm going to be part of the ensemble and understudying for various parts in my local theatre's pantomime.
Oh, well
Uh,
done, mate. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really special for me because I've worked at that theatre, like front of house, on and off for the last 10 years since it's been open. So
Yeah.
to be on that theatre's main stage on its 10th birthday, that's, even as ensemble, that's still pretty damn special. So that's what I'm doing over Christmas.
Oh,
Many people are surprised by this, but I love ice skating.
ice
Like
skating. Okay.
I trained as a figure skater
I did it.
between, how old was I? Between 10 and 14. And I
Yeah.
loved it. Something about zipping around on the ice is like really exhilarating. There's a
Yeah.
proper thrill to it. I stopped because, and this will sound so silly, but you have various grades in ice skating, like you do with any sort of sport.
Yeah.
Remember, you had 6 regular grades, passed all of those. And then you got to what they called advanced, and there was 3 levels. An advanced one, the move that always sticks, you basically had to do a pirouette where you jump, you spin, and you land gracefully like an angel from on high. I could jump, I could spin, couldn't quite land,
Oh, oh.
except flat on my side every single time. And I gave it a few good goes. Like I redid that like level several times, but there's only so many times you can crash to the ground before you think, you know what, I should probably jack. And if I'd have stuck with it, I probably would have got it. But again, I was
Yeah.
14, and at that time of life, you think, you're a moody teenager. You think, oh, sod it.
Mm.
I'm not going to do this. But I think it's a great skill. It is like riding a bike. You can whack a pair of skates on me. I can still skate round the rink, and it is a lovely escape.
Yeah.
It's so hard to describe, I think, because I know a lot of people don't like ice skating, but I think I'm convinced as long as you can hold yourself up
Yeah.
and move forward, that is the hardest bit. Once you've done that, you're away.
No.
So that's one hobby.
Yeah. That sounds really cool. And to be honest, I've never been ice skating myself, but I've always been fascinated by it. I've seen, to be honest, mainly in movies. Seeing
Yeah.
like the ice skating scenes. I'm like, yeah, that would be really cool to try out.
Yeah, I
But
remember watching that film I, Tonya with Margot Robbie
oh
and seeing
yeah.
all those tricks and thinking, see, that's what I could have been. That's what I could have done. But no, but then stupidly I thought, oh well, rollerblades, they're like a nice skate. It's one blade, same principle. Not the same principle. Not at all. I stuck on a pair of rollerblades and I fell flat on my face. It's not the same principle. I do want to learn though. That's my next thing. I want to
Yeah.
learn either roller blading or roller skating.
Yeah.
I'd love to learn how to, because again, I think it's that same sort of freedom, but taken out into like normal life. And I think that would be really cool. So yeah, that's another one. What else do I like to do? I like to watch films, all kinds of films, classic films, new films. I love that. Um, yeah, and then just I guess as I say, making content is a hobby in itself.
Yeah.
Fairly regular hobby, but yeah, I enjoy that too.
No, it's really cool to get a little insight into your life there, and again, understand what you're passionate about, because it is always cool learning about what other people get up to outside of this little blue box show that we
Absolutely.
love. But yes, you're an actor, and you have recently been working with Big Finish on some of the
Yes.
Ninth Doctor box sets. So how did this first come about?
Oh, by some sort of miracle, I think. So back in lockdown, I had a podcast of my own at the time,
Yeah,
AMTV Radio, and similar to yourself, I literally just wanted to chat with people about anything, like their careers, their work, random tangents. Like I love it when podcasts like this are just really like chilled out, laid back, like you can go on those tangents and it
yeah,
feels all natural. And most of the people I chatted with were Doctor Who related people. We had some non-Who people as well, but it was mostly Who. And one of them was a lady called Helen Goldwyn, who
yeah,
is a frequent collaborator with Big Finish. She's acted for them. She has written stories. She's directed. She's done everything with them pretty much. And I was just chatting with her about her work and how I was a big admirer of it. And I can't remember if this is in the recording or if it was after, but sometime when I was speaking with her, we just got on to acting, and I
yeah.
obviously said I was an actor as well, and that I'd planned to be leading this new musical called No Horizon, where the main character is blind, and I'm visually impaired myself, so that has a lot of relevance for me and a lot of weight for me. And we were 2 days from opening night, and then our prime minister said we shouldn't do it anymore. So
Oh,
uh,
so sorry to hear that.
no, I mean, we're still trying to get it remounted. This just shows how long theatre takes. It's been
Yeah,
nearly 4 years and we're still trying to get it. Hopefully next year, fingers crossed.
fingers crossed for you.
But I told Helen all about that, and that was it. End of chat, blah blah blah. And then I think about 2 or 3 months later, she just emailed me to say, "Oh, did you say that you were visually impaired?" I remember from our conversation, and she said, "Oh, there might be a visually impaired based role coming up." But at that time, she was like, "Not sure yet. We're still working it out, but just wanted to know." Um, and then I think I'd sent in my voice reel before that as well, which is what you do for most voiceover jobs. They want to get a graft of your voice.
Yeah.
And then it was around half a year later. I was walking to my job, and the phone goes. It's an unknown number, which you're always a bit like, okay.
Yeah.
But I answered it, and the lovely Helen said, "Hello, Adam, it's Helen." I was like, "Oh, you're all right," and we're just chatting. And then she says, "So, that part, yeah, it's happening. So, how'd you fancy going to work for Big Finish?" So, of course, I was like, "Oh my god, like, absolutely." And then she said, "Do you want to know which doctor it's with?" And I was like, "Oh my god, it's because there's all the spin-off ranges as well." So
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my god, it's one of the doctors." And she said it's going to be with the Ninth Doctor. And instantly, where I was in like a big town square. And I literally was like, "Oh my god!" Like people were staring at me and all that. Probably thought something terrible had happened. But because again, like we've talked about, that was my introduction to this whole franchise. Was Christopher Eccleston?
Yeah.
He was my first Doctor. So the thought of acting with him was like I always joke about it, but if you'd have told that to 9-year-old Adam,
Yeah.
he would not have believed you. So even before I'd done it, it was like, right, but a dream come true. You've said it's going to happen. You joke like, oh, is it real? Like, did that actually happen? But then you get the script sent to you, and you're like, oh my god, it's happening. And then we went to record, and I count myself really lucky because when we recorded the first one, Red Darkness,
Yeah.
this was still during like a peak of COVID.
Yeah.
And I think there were 6 principal actors in that cast, and they said only 3 can come to London to record. 3 of you will have, which again, I totally understand that. Again, this was at a time when it was really prevalent. It wasn't the safe. Well, I think we'd had some jabs by then, but it's still not the safest environment. And I sort of thought, oh, I'm new to all this. Like, they're not going to want to get me in the studio. And then I got an email saying, yeah, so it's you, Harky Bamborough, who of course plays Doyle, Callan's dog, and Chris. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening. And then, yeah, the day came itself, and people obviously go like, oh, you must have been so nervous. Literally only for about 2 minutes. Like when when you see Christopher Eccleston walk in the room and you're
Yeah.
like, oh my God, it's the Ninth Doctor. But then the minute you actually start talking to him, it's true what everyone said. He is such like a down-to-earth regular dude. Like there's
Yeah.
no pretense of ego. He doesn't swan about sort of, sharing what he's done in like a boastful way.
Mm-hmm.
He is literally the most chilled out person ever. So within about 2 minutes of meeting him, any nerves that I did have just were gone. And the whole day, it was like working in any other acting company in the sense that you're having fun. You're not thinking about, oh my God, it's Christopher Eccleston. You're three guys in a booth, like doing this script, cracking jokes at each other. The fact that me and Harky are originally from Yorkshire, he's from Lancashire, so we would have little War of the Roses thing going on. Yeah, just great. It was great banter, and it's true what they say about Big Finish. Like the environment's so fun. It's so free and like relaxed, but you still get the job done. Helen was great as director, like facilitating it all. It was a lovely, wonderful experience. So imagine my shock when they said, "Do you want to do another?" So because well, I won't say it in case some of your audience hasn't heard it, but let's say at the end of the first story I was in, you could interpret it as he might come back or he might not come back, and they'll do like a time jump. And I thought it'd be the latter, if I'm honest. I thought they've got me in for one, that they won't want me back in. And then they had me back in. So yeah, we did the second one and again got to go down to London, record with Chris. We had the full team that time, which was
Hey, that's good.
Yeah. So it was just honestly bucket list experience ticked off. Like no matter what else happens now, I can say in some way I've been in Doctor Who with Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And no one can take that away from me. So I'll clutch onto that till I'm no longer around. So
Exactly, and I guess if you could pardon the pun, it really is a trip of a lifetime. I'm guessing to be
honest, absolute trip of a lifetime. Like again, 9-year-old Adam would not have believed you, not in a million years.
Well, no, it does certainly seem like a brilliant experience, and especially working with someone that you grew up watching as well. I can imagine it must have been fun. Being able to actually get to know him as well on a somewhat personal level as well. I think.
Oh yeah, like chatting with him about just like general life stuff, like what's going on in life and where we're at and what's going on. That's what I meant. It was such a normal environment in the sense that you didn't feel you had to be a certain way around him or anybody. It was just a really relaxed environment, which I really appreciated. And I joke now, like I need to tick the rest of the doctors off now. So.
Well, let's move on to a little bit more of a spicy segment of the podcast. And this is the debate questions. And for those who are unaware, the debate questions are marked at the end of the podcast's current season by the audience. And you, Adam, could stand the chance of winning a £50 Amazon voucher.
Oh, wow.
Sounds good. This was inspired by, all the hot takes and, stuff you see on Twitter, people, making Doctor Who controversy, but I've got a controversial question to ask you, Adam.
Go on.
So, with it looking more likely that some missing episodes will never be found, unfortunately, do you think it would be suitable for Doctor Who to have these episodes completely refilmed in live action, but with a new cast? So, for example, David Bradley in a recreation of the Celestial Toymaker.
I see. Honestly, gut feeling, no. I don't think they should. And I think that's because my argument is that even though we don't have them visually, we still have these original episodes in some form, namely like the audio soundtrack, so they're still there to be consumed. And I know on the surface people might say, oh, you've got the animations there, they're an alternative, so why wouldn't you why wouldn't you want to refilm it? For me, there's something very different between live action and animation. And at least with the animation, they're still using the original soundtracks. So it's like, the original essence of that episode is still there. I just think if you refilmed it, even with a new cast, as brilliant as David Bradley is and all of those, like An Adventure in Space and Time and so on, it just wouldn't be that story.
Yeah.
It'd be a new alternative way of that story, which, if they did make it, I'm not saying if they did make it, I'd be, there with my picket in the street going, oh, they need to get rid of it. But I think, as you say, asking me point blank, I'd rather they just keep doing what they're doing. Like, do the animations with the original soundtracks, or
Yeah.
just have the original soundtracks. Because really, as well, you'd be filming it. There is no way you cannot tell me. You're saying the BBC, right? We're gonna do these lost episodes with a new cast,
Yeah.
and the fans will love it. The BBC are like, right, I'm listening, and say, right, so we're gonna film it with black and white cameras on 4:3, and they'll go, wait, what? They'll be like, yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna film it with 1960, and they'll go. I honestly think the BBC will go, absolutely not.
No.
Like I think if the BBC were going to get behind it in a serious way, they'd imply doing it, obviously with color cameras
Yeah.
in HD. They'd basically film it the way the show is filmed now,
Yeah.
but with those stories. And I think those stories weren't made with modern day sensibilities like that in mind. So I think it was shot for studio with multiple cameras and all this. And I don't know. I just think it wouldn't feel right. And I'm not saying that I see what you mean now about hot takes. I'm not saying that in like a purist thing or anything like that. What I mean is, like, if you're filming a story, say like Marco Polo with HD cameras, it could look very scenic and very beautiful. But then is it really that original? Would you put that on your shelf with the rest of season 1, which is shot in black and white 4:3 in Lime Grove Studio D? Like, I don't know. For me, it's like, if they did it, fine, but I don't think it will replace, for me, like what the originals are, even if they only exist via a soundtrack or an animation.
Yeah.
Like, if you said to me, oh, they've greenlit the live action remakes, they're all coming out, I'd probably get them, but I'd have them on like a whole separate space on the shelf, like their own category. I wouldn't put them with series like 1 through 6 or anything like that. And I just don't think, realistically, I don't think it's going to happen.
No, of course.
You need the approval of the Beeb, who are in a tough enough situation as it is with, well, seemingly everything at the minute. I mean, cost of television production this year has ballooned because of cost of living and various other factors. So I think even in the next 10 years, if you could make the most convincing argument, it's the 60th anniversary, the fans will lap it up, you could say anything in the world, but I just don't think they'd do it. I don't think it's in their interest to do it. And because really, you could say it's for everyone, but are they really only serving the fans? Like, I don't know how many casual viewers would, because then if they would they broadcast it on TV? Would they just release it on home media or for streaming? And I just don't think it's not going to happen. See, I'm ranting now. Sorry.
No,
it's not going to happen, I think, because it's not realistic to happen in the current climate. And I don't think it should happen, because who is it for?
Yeah.
And why? Like, why do we need a live action remake of those missing episodes? I don't think it's necessary. And again, I'll preface it because I feel like, with the Doctor Who fandom, you have to keep repeating yourself to get your point across. I don't think, again, I'm not saying they should never do it. If they do it, great, fantastic. It's another alternative. You don't have to watch it. I'm not saying like it, you must watch them. Of course you don't have to watch it. But I just wouldn't get the point. We're on a roll with these animations. They're starting back up again. Of course. Fans on the whole, I'd argue, like the vast majority, seem very happy with the animations. And I think part of it is because it's still those original voices we hear. It's the original sound effects. It's the original music. It's, it still has that essence of the original material. Whereas if you completely redo it, even if you said, right, we're going to keep all the lines the same, the actors are going to deliver them in the exact same way, the music's going to be exactly the same, but it's still not the same, is it?
No,
like,
of course.
Can't be. So yeah, that's my spicy take. I just don't think it should happen. I think it's unnecessary.
Yeah, and to be honest, Adam, you do make a lot of good points there, especially, as I said at the beginning, it does look like some of them will probably never see the light of day, unfortunately. But, you can't really replace that then if that's the case. Once something's lost, it's lost, unfortunately. And I don't think you can, even if it was, as you said, you got all the, lookalikes, and if they filmed it in black and white and all that stuff, it would never be able to replace what was lost.
Absolutely. And I mean, we are so lucky as a fandom that all of the missing episodes have their audio soundtracks accounted for. Like, we are insanely lucky.
Yeah.
that is the case, because there's so many classic shows out there that don't even have that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so it's like I always argue you can still enjoy every single episode of Doctor Who that's ever made. Some of them will just be without visuals. It'll
Yeah.
just have to be in your ears. And I think, like people would say, oh, but like the Daleks Master Plan, like the Christmas episode was never sold abroad, that's lost forever. So surely we must remake it because, but again, that's a 12 episode beast.
Yeah.
You're going to convince the BBC to commit resources to do that? I just don't see it happening. I don't envision a world where, unless the BBC suddenly comes into endless amounts of wealth, where like their pockets are literally bottomless, then yeah, they'd probably be like, yeah, sure, here's 5 million quid, go do it. But yeah, I just don't think it's realistically ever
Yeah.
probably. If a fan does it,
Mm.
I'd argue that's different.
Because didn't we have that
Because
with the Mission to the Unknown?
yes, Mission
Yeah.
to the Unknown was done by UCLan, I think, University College of Lancashire, I think, if I've got my
Yeah,
names.
I think so.
And I loved it. It was
Yeah.
great. It was such like a faithful reproduction, but I think there's a big difference between something that's organized by fans as like
Yeah.
a love letter compared to something officially sanctioned by the BBC.
Yeah.
I think it's great to see fan efforts with missing episodes. Like we've seen fans attempt missing episode animations or reconstructions
Yeah.
or things like that. And I love seeing the effort behind it. Again, they're alternatives, but I don't know, if a fan was like somehow, the most rich fan in the world was like, I've got all the resources to remake Dalek's Master Plan, all 12 episodes. I can do it as faithfully as possible. I Would it become the definitive version to watch? Maybe. But again, I just don't think realistically
Yeah.
that will happen in the future.
No, that again, you've made some really solid points there, Adam. But unfortunately, I am not the deciding factor. So,
Of course.
audience, people who are watching, listening, whoever's consuming and however you're consuming this podcast, let us know in the comment section down below. Did Adam handle the spiciness there? Because yeah, it certainly was a very controversial question, and certainly one that he did answer very well, in my opinion. But
Thank
before we
you.
wrap up, there's a couple questions I've got from my YouTube viewers that I've
Oh,
selected
fab.
to go through. So from Ben Harper,
Mm.
Ben has asked, because you've appeared in a couple of Big Finish box sets now, and he was wondering if you had the opportunity to work with another Doctor on a completely new Big Finish series or standalone story, who would it be and why?
Oh, any Doctor. I think I'd really first one that came to mind would be Sylvester McCoy.
Yeah.
I know I touched on it earlier. I really love the many facets his Doctor has. He can go from that like unassuming clown to the master manipulator. And some
Yeah.
of his Big Finish stuff in like the main range and the box sets is, for like the lengths the Seventh Doctor goes to in some of them is insane. But he plays it so well. And I'd love to star in a story like that has a
Yeah.
lot of those darker undertones that just to see the Seventh Doctor do that, like, in the studio and be part of that story, I think that'd be so, so cool. But equally, by the same token, Peter Davison would be
Yeah.
another one, because I think he's been served so well on Big Finish. They've allowed that more vulnerable side of the Fifth Doctor to really shine a lot more than it ever did on TV. And it's made for some really emotional box sets and stories. So again, to feature in a story like that with him would be really cool.
Oh, some really cool choices there, and hey, you never know, that could happen.
Fingers crossed, Big Finish. If you're listening, I'm always available.
And then the final question I've selected is from the Whovian 2000, and they've asked, we haven't even had David Tennant as the 14th Doctor, and we certainly haven't had Ncuti as the 15th. But if you had to pick anyone for the 16th Doctor, who would it be and why?
Oh, someone as the 16th Doctor. That's so hard, isn't it? Because we all have like our fan castings and stuff like that. I think after seeing him going back to like acting in the part, I think after seeing Oppenheimer this year, I'd love to see someone like Cillian Murphy take the part.
Oh,
because I think again he could really get that. I don't think he'd take it in a million years,
yeah.
but I think he could really get like the light and shade of it. He probably would be more like, well, depends how he wants to play it, but in my mind he'd be like more Capaldi-esque, that sense that he has a bit of a sharper edge, a bit more a bit more abrasiveness. So I think that'd be a really. I'd love that the 16th Doctor to obviously, like I say, we don't know how 14 is going to be, we don't know how 15 is going to be, but I'd love for one of the Doctors to maybe return to a bit more of that abrasiveness, a bit
Yeah.
because that's what before Peter Capaldi, my favorite Doctor was William Hartnell because he was so I know he was the first, but he was so different because he was like way more tetchy. He
Yeah.
was more abrasive. He was less prone to stuff like that. And I think you can find that balance of still liking the Doctor, knowing
Yeah.
that they're gonna save the day or whatever. But they, they can have those moments where you sort of call that into question. So I'd love for whether 14 does that or Shooty or whoever comes after. I'd just love to see that again in the show.
No, again, there's some very good points that you made there regarding, characterization of the Doctor. And I feel like, yeah, that added unpredictability as well would certainly be, a welcome addition, certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly. But, Adam, thank you so much for coming on for today's episode. It has been a pleasure to work with you and to talk with you about all things Doctor Who, your hobbies, your interests, the history of your YouTube channel, Big Finish, Christopher Eccleston, countless things, but it has been a delight. So, again, thank you for coming on. It really has been an honor.
Oh no, honestly, thank you. The pleasure's all mine. I love coming on things like this just to chat Doctor Who or chat about anything. I could, as my partner will probably tell you, I could go on forever. So so no, thank you so much for inviting me on this podcast. And yeah, it's been a really fun time.
Oh, thank you again. And for those that have tuned in, thank you as well for, supporting the podcast. And yeah, if you have enjoyed this podcast episode, click that like button, subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Thank you very much for all the support. And yeah, bye-bye for now.
Bye.